Well, I don't believe that earning more money alone is the right strategy and the right path to creating wealth. I believe that if you're not wealthy, if you're not financially free, or perhaps if you're not achieving your financial dreams, whatever that might be, if you're in debt, I believe that that is not the problem. If you're in debt, debt is not the problem. Debt is a symptom that there is a problem. If you're not financially free, it's not a problem. It's a symptom that there is a problem. And in my experience and from my little understanding, I believe that you must deal with the problem first, because by dealing with the problem, the symptom disappears. Now, most people focus on the symptom. So most people say, I've got to earn more. Well, earning more money doesn't create wealth. Wealth is really a product of what you do with what you earn. And there is one reason that most people stay poor or stay wealthy, and it comes down to this: habits. Habits decide whether you remain wealthy or whether you remain poor. It's really the choices you make and the decisions you make. That is what separates the wealthy from the average. So my view is this: focus less on what you earn and focus more on what you do with what you earn. The wealth formula shows you in one picture the difference in the habits, the habitual pattern of the wealthy and the poor. You see, the poor person earns, then first thing they do once they've earned is they spend, and once they're done spending, they save. This is the formula for poverty. I used to live in there before. I used to live by this formula. I would earn, and as soon as I earned, the first thing I did was spend, and I would give the money away, and at the end I would have nothing left, so I couldn't save. The wealthy, on the other hand, have a different formula they follow. They earn. The first thing they do is invest before they spend. So the earning is the same. It's the same. So you can see that it's not what you earn that is the problem. The question is, what is the first thing you do? What is your habits? What are your paradigms? What are your conditioned behaviors? The difference between the poor lies in these two things. The wealthy invest, the poor spend first. And therein lies the difference. So you must change your habits if you want to change your results. Now, if you're not happy with the results you have in life, in any area of your life, you don't change the results by changing something on the outside. You change the results by changing yourself, because you created the results. Therefore, if you want to change your financial position, you don't go trying to change the earnings on the outside. You simply focus on changing your habits. Change your habits to one of investing first before you spend. Now, another thing I want to draw your attention to is what we call paradigms. Now, a paradigm is simply a combination of various habits, a mixture of so many habits. We call that conditioning. Make no mistake, we're all conditioned. Every one of us is conditioned. We have philosophies, beliefs, we have things that we do daily, consistently, without thinking about it. Every country has a culture. A culture is simply a combination of paradigms and habits, a way of living, a way of thinking, a way of a lifestyle choice that most people have subscribed to. We all have it. Now, the next thing to look at is simply that the wealthy spend after they've invested, but they don't focus on saving. The poor, on the other hand, focus on saving. They save actively, and by actively, what I mean by this is they save for the long term. Now, because in many cases they spend much more than they earn, they only have so little sometimes nothing to save. So they have to save for a really long time to make up or generate a reasonable sum of money. The wealthy invest first and then they spend. Now, when they spend with a budget in mind. In other words, they try to live below their means. Now, this means that they create what's called a surplus, meaning they have some leftovers after spending. Now, this leftover could be really small, but what the wealthy do, they save that leftover passively. By passively, I mean they save with an intention. My recommendation is this: if you're saving for more than 12 months, that is active saving, and you shouldn't do that. You should always save passively with a goal in mind, with a purpose in mind, because every day that you hold on to your money, what you really have is you've kept your money in a bank account is doing nothing. You're working hard and your money is sitting there doing nothing. You must put some overalls on your money and put it to work. Let it keep going out and hunting for more. The way you do this is simply by having a purpose. And a purpose is simply saying I have a detailed reason as to why I'm saving. There's a plan. I'm going to save for 12 months. I'm going to save for 9 months. I'm going to save for 6 months. But I'm not going to save beyond 12 months. Why? Because the more I hold on to the money, I hold on to a currency. A currency will continue to decline in value, especially as inflation goes up and as the government continues to print more money. The wealthy understand what a currency stands for, and so what they do is very quickly they try to convert their savings to what we call assets, or they take their savings and they put it to work so that it continues to produce more money, or it's secure in an asset or an investment. Now, once it's in an investment, it's safe. It doesn't decline in value at the same rate as a currency. Now, these are just very simple ideas that I wanted to share with you today, just to perhaps get you thinking differently. It comes down to your habits. It comes down to what you do. So, as I conclude, let me say that again. It's not what you earn, it's what you do after you're paid. It's what you do with what you earn. If you're going to be wealthy, you must become what I call a compulsive investor, meaning every day, every month, every year, you put your money in such a way that you send the money into the future where it awaits you with a lot of interest. It's compounded, it's much more than it was in the present. That is how you create wealth. You can earn a minimum wage, earn absolutely next to nothing and still be wealthy. If you think that's not possible, let me illustrate it with an example. The minimum wage in London is £7.50. If you're between 18 and 21, I believe, it's £7.50. This is equivalent to roughly about £14,000 every year. £14,000 every year would mean that every month you get something in the region of about £1,100 per month. This is the minimum wage. Now, if you decided that you would set aside only 10% of what you earn, that would be equivalent to 110. Let's assume this is just 100, just for the sake of simplicity. £100 every single month in a year would mean that you saved about 1,200. But instead of saving for the long term, now think about this. If you saved £100 per month or £1,200 for 50 years, at the end of 50 years, what you would have is £60,000. That's all you have after 50 years of saving 10% of what you earn. On the other hand, if you decided to invest and you found an investment vehicle that would pay 10% return per year, and you invested £100 and you compounded that money every month or every year, you would have, at the end of 50 years, you would have approximately 1.15 million. Can you see the difference? This comes from financial education. If you save, you have £60,000. If you invest smartly, wisely, you have just over £1 million. Now, this is not all. A 1.15 million pounds at the end of 50 years, if you found an investment vehicle that would pay 10%, if you put your 1.15 million in that, it would pay you 115,000 per year. In other words, it would pay you approximately £10,000 per month. But guess what? You've only earned £1,100 all of your life. But by the time you retire, you're earning almost 10 times that amount. That comes through financial education. And that is where you have to start. Begin by educating yourself. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is disaster. Ignorance is tragedy. You and I can have a remarkable life. We must be willing to learn. The ancient writer says that my people are perishing for lack of knowledge, for lack of information. Make a decision today that you will take on the challenge of becoming a lot more knowledgeable in the areas of wealth and fashion for yourself. And that's the word, fashion. You see, the wealthy lifestyle, the good life, is achieved first by design, then you create it. In other words, you can buy the good life. It all begins with imagination. Now, I hope this has been useful. I want you to go away and think about how you can use some of these ideas in your personal or family life and start coming up with a plan for the future, a plan for the good life. I wish you the best. God bless.